Keith mentioned earlier Joe's crash at the British Grand Prix. And something that happened at exactly the same time as that was a track invasion from Just Stop Oil. And it's interesting because I had a conversation with Christian Silk, who obviously up until middle of the year, I think, or end of season 7, I think he was the team principal at Neo 333, of course. So you guys would know him quite well. And Christian, of course, does a lot of work with sort of environmental activism and that sort of thing. And I had a very interesting discussion with him where he was sort of in support of the protesters, and I sort of made the point of, well, how would you feel if this happened to, some of your drivers at like a Formula E race? Surely it makes more sense to either do that sort of protest on the grid when the cars aren't on a live racetrack, or you sneak like a Greenpeace flag on the podium, as we've seen, sometimes before. It seems to me like a very desperate, obviously saving the planet is a very, very important cause, but I think risking your life to sort of go on a live racetrack, it seems a little suicidal, and it seems a little desperate, and maybe not the sort of, it's not sort of, I don't know, I sort of got where Christian was coming from, but it felt a little bit like I don't know. It's an odd thing, and I worry that something like that might happen in Formula E one day. But I know security is very good. I've seen it myself at the track at like places like London. But what do you guys think about those sorts of tactics and the sort of using motorsport events in that way as a sort of event to sort of track invade essentially?
I have a simple view on this now. As I've got older, I do believe that these situations, that group who may at the bottom line or the baseline of their beliefs have things that are in the best interests of people and long term and the environment and the planet. And I agree that those things need to happen. But when I align everything to a big freighter ship, and when a freighter ship is going in a straight line, it takes a lot to turn it. And once it turns, it starts to go in the new direction quite quickly. But it takes a long time. And I think all environmental causes take a long time. And the problem with these type of people, and when they do these kind of more radical based protests, is that what they actually end up doing is causing further divisiveness rather than actually sympathy for their cause. I think there are very few people who are actually sympathetic to the way they do things compared to the number of people who are sympathetic about changing the environment, helping the planet. Because again, as I said, there's lots of people in the world, billions, that don't have a thought about the environment because they're living in a shack somewhere, right? And then there's all these people who are actually thinking about the environment and know we have to do something, but know that it's not necessarily in our control. So like to Mark's point about motorsport, we are all trying to do the best we can to make change. Formula E is on the forefront of that change because it is actually based on that as part of the ethos of the sport. Formula One is a little bit different because it's not actually the ethos of the sport, but they recognize that sustainability will be important because everybody does. So I just think that divisiveness never gets us anywhere. It's not really my background. I'm quite a divisive person when it comes to politics over the years, right? Grew up that way. But I recognize, as being a bit older now, that it just doesn't work. And it's better to have communication with people in general, than it is to always try to fight with everybody. Because nobody listens to you when you start fighting, right?
Yeah, I've got some pretty divisive views that the Formula E paddock has criticised me from in the past as well, so I try and keep that to myself.
Yeah, but you have to, this is the point, right, Ed, is that there's ways to deliver your message, and there's ways, but often human beings, again, part of human nature is we're overruled by the passion of our beliefs. And we think what we think is right, and so we can't understand if somebody else doesn't think it's right. But if we deliver that in a really harsh way, like putting, them doing that, throwing things on, art, sitting in the middle of the streets and affecting everybody's daily life, that just really ends up, I bet you there's more people who hate those people now than would have been sympathetic for them if they'd done it a different way.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the target. Like blockading, say, an oil refinery or something like that probably makes a bit more sense than lying on a live racetrack.